When you reach out and grab the world by the tail, will it always go your way? Stay tuned and find out.
Welcome.
Okay, here's the question.
Serious?
How are we dark horses? You know, the ones everyone is betting against, the ones they don't expect to win, place, or even show on the track, and they'll even laugh on us when we talk about trying. How do we show the world our greatness and triumph?
Come on.
Well, that's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. This is The Dark Horse Entrepreneur. My name is Tracy Brinkman.
And push it up.
What is up? What is up? What the hell is up, my dark horse friends and family? Welcome back to your weekly dose of speech bubble learning. I'm your dark horse host, Tracy Brinkman. And you? Well, that, my friend, is infinitely more important. You are a driven entrepreneur or one in the making. Either way, you're here because you're ready to start, restart, kickstart, and just start leveling up with some great marketing, personal, or business results in order to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. And that's why I'm here hitting you with yet another one of these weekly success episodes with these amazing guests. And today, today we're going to be talking to Mark Stancil. Mark Stancil is going to be talking about associating with like minds, reminding us to not limit our options. He's going to talk about finding your niche, the importance of mentor advice, and following it, check it out, that and so much more. Plus, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek into next week's interview episode guest. He was a lieutenant serving our country, serving the United States of America in the United States Army as a platoon leader during Operation Iraqi Freedom. As per usual, the Dark Horse corrals are chock full of personal, business, and marketing GOLD spilling from every corner of the Dark Horse Entrepreneur HQ. So let's get to the starting gates and go. All right, my Dark Horse friends and family. Today's guest is Mark Stancil. Now, Mark is the CEO of Terminus Media. Terminus Media is a faith and family-friendly entertainment company focused on graphic novels, animations, and film. Now, Mark is also the author of Shift, Platypus versus Monkey. This all makes sense. Bear with me here. And the soon-to-be-released title called Ascension, all from Terminus Media. There's so many amazing stories behind this, but I don't want to steal all Mark's thunder. All right, Mark, welcome to the Dark Horse Entrepreneur, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure to come out. I saw some of the things that you're doing, and I'm like, I gotta chat with this guy. I was almost like geeking out a little bit, but I don't want to give away the farm here. Don't want to give away too much. I want to shut up here and let you tell your story, the good, the bad, the ugly, the things that brought you to where you are today, and why you love doing what you do so much.
Awesome. Well, yeah, about 20 years ago, I was someone who I'm a writer. I come from a long line of writers. I never aspired to be a writer like some people. I'm going to be a writer someday. I never particularly wanted to be a writer, but I'm just, I like to write. I think I write pretty well, but I was writing screenplays and living in Atlanta at the time. About 20 years ago, there was basically no film business in Atlanta. And I met some guys at a comic shop, and they were writers as well. And so we started meeting just to talk about the screenplays we were working on, and to talk trash about all these derivative films that are in the theaters these days. I can't believe it. How many sequels of Fast and Furious do we need anyway? I think they're on number
27.
14. Yeah, 14. Yeah, 27. Who knows? But we. And it was when that movie Fight Club came out with Brad Pitt. The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. But we called our little writers group the Right Club, because we basically throw down and say the structure of your script is confusing. It doesn't work for. Hey, how many more times can you use an adverb, dude? Like speak slowly, gently. Hey, cut that out. So I think our writing got better and our scripts got better, but then we had all these scripts and we didn't know what to do with them, because back then, if you didn't live in Los Angeles or New York, there was really nobody to talk to. So we had some buddies around in the comic shop and some folks we knew who were artists, and so we figured if we start turning these screenplays into comic books, then at least we'll have a product that we can sell in terms of an actual book, but it's also storyboards for a film. We started making comic books, and then we started making animation to promote our comic books that promoted our screenplays. And it just kind of grew from there. Folks would see us at these, nerd conventions and say, hey, I have some public health education that we'd like to see turned into a comic book and animation. Do you think you could help us out with that? Yes, I think we could help you out with that. So then we broke, so that sort of put us doing creative services for other people. So that's how the company got started, and the makeup of Terminus Media has changed constantly. We started out with folks who were just kind of wandering into a comic book shop on a Sunday afternoon. Hey, what's going on? And we'd all sit around the table and talk. But the team the team got big, and then the team got smaller and tighter and faster and stronger. Because sometimes if you're in the ship, you realize, hey, half the people on the ship aren't really doing anything. They're not pulling an oar. They're not shoveling coal into the furnace. They're not swabbing the decks. They're just complaining about how everybody else swabs the decks and complaining about, hey, why don't I make $500,000 a year for what I'm doing? And so so sometimes you have to kick them off the ship, and sometimes you have to take your ship into dry dock and rework it and set sail on the other side of the Suez Canal or whatever. So.
That's actually a great analogy right there. Yeah, it's funny. I think there's so many entrepreneurs, have big businesses and small, that can probably relate to what you just said, that, we started doing good and brought these members on. All of a sudden we start looking around, and some of these folks aren't doing anything that they're not adding value, right? They may be doing something, who knows, but they're not adding value to the end product at the end of the day. And you've got to, like you said, you've got to rehome the ship. You got to really check the crew out. That's probably not the easiest thing you've ever done. Is that fair to say?
Oh, it is very difficult because, early on I was like, I want to help everybody and everybody jump on the ship and we're all going to be successful together. The whole Zig Ziglar, you can have everything in the world you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. Right. And I think that's true, but when all those people are people who are tuned into, WIFM, what's in it for me, they're saying, gimme, gimme, gimme. But when you say, hey, I need this from you, like, well, I can't do that because my wife is busy. It needs me to do that, or I don't have any money to contribute to this, thing that we're doing. When the money's big, they're like, hey, where's mine? But when the business is struggling, when the business is losing money, they're all kind of like,
yeah, they're like,
just kind of whistling and
standing over in the corner, minding their own business. Yeah. Right. It's got to be a symbiotic relationship, right? You gotta hold hands through the good and the bad, and I think when you can find those folks that will weather the storm with you, those are the ones you want to hold on to, and you gotta chip away at that dead wood.
Everybody. So I like to work with people that work.
Well, there it is. There it is right there. It is called work, by the way, just so everyone knows. So tell me a bit about more about Terminus Media. You kind of, I won't say you glazed over it, but you shared a little bit of it right there. You said it got big and now it's not small. I mean, what's Terminus Media all about these days?
Sure. Well, Terminus Media, I would say we're a comics, animation, film. We're a media company. Our bread and butter is comics and animation, and but our sort of take on it is we want to be the faith and family friendly comics and animation company. There's a lot of great shows that I love, but they're not appropriate for kids. You know what I mean? So we want to be kind of I think Disney to some extent used to be that. I don't know if they still are. Yes. They're going through a lot of changes there at the Walt Disney Company, which I love. And I think Bob Iger is a genius leader. a long string of great leaders in that organization, which you can see by the results that they get.
Mm-hmm.
But Bob Iger buying Pixar, buying Marvel, the dude was just like killing it. So a lot of admiration for that. But there's a lot of content coming out. So we want to be that faith and family friendly company. And when we say faith, it doesn't matter what your faith is. We happen to be Christians, and we're proud about that, and we don't feel like we should have to go in the closet, because
Right.
we're Christians, and we don't expect Muslims or Jews or Hindus or anybody of any faith to feel like they have to keep their faith in the closet or
Right.
And it's about being an authentic person.
Mm-hmm.
If faith is an important part of your life, you should be able to be out about that. So we are that.
Nice. It's funny you mentioned the shift in Disney, and I'm with you. I agree. They have made some amazing moves over the years, and of course, I'm a little longer in the tooth than you are, I'm going to guess. So I've seen Disney change since I was a kid, and since my children were kids to current. I'm a big Marvel fan, and them scooping them up really kind of changes. Almost 180 degrees what Disney was when I was a youth, right? I mean, when you watched Disney shows back then, there was almost zero violence, right? There was nothing questionable in there. And over time, and society has changed as well, so it's probably a reflection of that. Their mantras has shifted, and now you've got them having Marvel under their purview and Star Wars as well, and then which is peppered with violence, and don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan. I love me some Star Wars. I will go to every single Marvel movie that's out there. But you're right. I think over the generations, over the decades, they have made this shift from what maybe once was an edict, right? Maybe carved in stone, has since been, molded. And so picking that lane for you, I think it's probably awesome. Do you find that people are resonating to you as a result of you picking that lane, as opposed to, hey, we're just a comic book company?
Yeah, because we used to be just the generic comic book company. We're going to be an indie comic company. Well, if you go to San Diego Comic-Con, the biggest comic convention in the world in San Diego, California, you will see that there is no shortage of independent comic book companies. There are literally thousands of them, and they're all going, look at us, our stories are unique, look at us, our stories are great. But there's so many little fish in that big pond, it's hard to stand out. So for us, having a faith and family-friendly focus for our business, it's not just being authentic who we are, but it's also strategic. It's about reaching an audience, reaching the audience that we want to communicate with, that we want to connect with. Because you don't necessarily have to be a person of faith to appreciate our comics. They're entertaining, they're great stories, regardless of where you're coming from. But if you have 4-year-old, 5-year-old kid, you can sit down and go through it with them. And any mom who's ever gone, or dad who's gone into a comic shop, you have to either ask the guy there, hey, what's appropriate for the kids? Or you have to give the comic book the flip test yourself and say, let me make sure there's nothing offensive in there.
Yeah, so no Vampirilla episodes for the kids, please. Okay. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that this lane that you've picked is probably a value-based lane, right? Because if you think about any of the faiths, let's stick for faith for a moment, it doesn't matter. Like you mentioned, all the different faiths that you mentioned, they still have the same values. The stories behind those values may deviate some. That's cool, but the values are still the same. So you can effectively represent a Christian as well as you can a Hindu or a Buddhist because of those value bases. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, and I think it's absolutely true, because there are some truths that are universal. Things like you reap what you sow, right? If you ask any person of faith, And pretty much any person who's not of any kind of faith, they're going to agree with that as a universal truth. Yes, if you put good and positive things out into the universe, you'll tend to get good and positive things back.
Absolutely
So,
right. No,
yeah.
that's cool. I like that. I like that. And I haven't been lucky enough to make it to the San Diego Comic-Con. I've made it to a number that I made it to one here in Chicago, which was
Oh,
pretty darn big. And I
mhm.
have made it to Dragon Con, and both of
No
those you
kidding.
see a lot of the indie comic folks there, and some of the mainstream artists will go to the Atlanta Dragon Con, and that's a crazy show. That's something
Yeah,
else
the
right there.
Dragon Con is crazy. And yeah, Dragon Con is our hometown convention. I'm here in Atlanta. So, if you've never been to Dragon Con, it's a huge, basically like a masquerade party spread over 5 hotels. And it starts on Thursday and it goes through Sunday afternoon, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a marathon of a convention, but, it's I know I'm biased for them from Atlanta, but that's really one of my favorite conventions to be an attendee at, just because of all the really high quality costumes that a
Oh,
lot of folks make themselves, and then they show up, in the Marriott in Atlanta at 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday at Dragon Con. I remember I saw a guy. He was the Dark Knight, like Batman, right?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it was black plate armor that he had on, so he was like a knight in armor, but he was Batman too. I'm just standing there,
That's
literally
kind of cool.
at 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, looking at this guy and like just the detail, and he's got the bat signal in plate armor on his chest, and I love that. I love creative people. Like
Yeah.
those are my people, the creatives, and making the world more beautiful and more interesting and more fun. So
I think one of the cool things about these cons that have come about, and I'm hoping to get the con guys on this show as well. But anyway, that's
yeah,
a whole
those are
nother.
some great guys.
That's right. I'm looking forward to chatting with those guys. And I used to live in Atlanta. I worked at Coke for like 12 years and then Home Depot. But anyway, so I was lucky enough to be able the in-home advantage of getting to Dragon Con. And the second one I went to, I was invited there to be a boom boy for a little. I guess back then it was a video show, and he says, "Hey, my boom boy ditched out on me." He called me up on the phone. "Hey, my boom boy ditched out on me. Can you be the boom boy Friday afternoon, and you can have his pass, which was the 3-day all access pass?" I'm like, yeah, because
Yeah,
these things are hundreds of dollars, y'all. For anyone that doesn't know, and so I got to walk around, hold the boom while he was doing the interviews, and we got to do the behind the scenes into the green room where folks were at, which was amazing, right? But then it was like, now I get to enjoy the rest of the event. But all that to say, I think what used to be looked at as the nerds and I'm going to use the word weirdos, right? From way back in, let's say, the 70s and 80s, it's so much more mainstream nowadays with the movies and everything else. You see that too, as well as in the comic book arena?
I do see the mainstreaming of comic books, especially in Marvel comics and DC. So yeah, I see that, and it's not like used to have kind of a creepy vibe, like it's the 40-year-old guy, sitting in his parents' basement, who forgot to shower for a month before he came to the convention.
Right.
That negative perception of nerds, but I meet all kinds of folks who love pop culture and comics and Japanese anime and stuff, and they're very successful and wealthy and run businesses and all these things. But they got to keep the comic thing on the down low a little bit, just because you talk to the guy in the office who's like, how about that game over the weekend, and you're like, yeah. Oh yeah, the game, man.
Yeah. No, I was in the parade of all the costume people. Sorry, I missed the game.
Right. I was taking pictures of the Dragon Con parade with all the 100 stormtroopers. But the thing is too, I know a lot of folks on our Terminus media team historically. There's a lot of them who are just as passionate about sports as they are about comics, and so they walk in both worlds, and that's great.
That's awesome. So you've built this thing, I'll say, from the ground up, from the story you were telling, sitting in the comic shop with your buddies. Hey, we got some artists, and you've kind of birthed this baby from zero to hero where it's at now. What do you think your biggest struggle along that path has been?
You're now listening to the Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
Well, I think our biggest struggle has always been sort of in the entertainment business. It's very up and down, cyclical. You release something and it's a success, and then you release something and it's not quite as big of a success. Mm-hmm. So it's just cash flow is the lifeblood of a business. Mm-hmm. So if you're in a business that has a recurring model of revenue where say people have a subscription to your comic book that they can sign up for, and every month you send them a comic, that subscription model is great. But if you're just kind of going with whatever happens, then it definitely affects cash flow. So I would say raising capital, cash flow has been something that we've had to learn and had to master over time.
Now, did you go through the trial and error, or did you say, what, we don't know nothing about this? That was good English, wasn't it? We don't know anything about this, so we're going to reach out to some expert that we have met and get their input.
Well, I think mentors are absolutely essential, right? And I've had mentors in the past. I've had advisors in the past who said, for instance, hey, all of your people, we work with hundreds of people all over the world, right? But Terminus doesn't have very many employees. Most of our people are sort of contract work for hire people.
Sure.
And we hire them on a project by project basis. So because of that, I was talking to another artist friend of mine who had leased a studio space for his art and stuff. And I was like, one of our clients, who's a big government client, told us that we really needed to lease some studio space, because that's how you get the big contracts, is they visit your physical address and they're so impressed by you, and then you get all these big contracts. And so I asked my buddy, I was like, do you think we should do that? And he's like, oh no, you do not need to waste any of your money on physical space. If you got to meet with your clients, either meet at their fancy office or meet for a lunch meeting or something. And so I was like, oh, thanks for that advice. And then I proceeded to lease, a studio space for 2 years, which I think we had maybe 2 or 3 clients visit. Didn't add to our cash flow at all. It was all a total drain on the business. So, number one, get a mentor or an advisor who knows what they're talking about, especially legal things and tax related things, finances. You need a good accountant and you need a good attorney. You're going to be successful in business. But the other thing is listen to what they say, because we get excited. My wealthy uncle, Uncle Johnny, who I put into a comic book here and there. Don't tell him that. My rich uncle, old Johnny, he talks about what he calls Mr. Excitement, right? And when you're an entrepreneur, you tend to get excited about things. You're like, we're going to do this. And, we're like Matt Foley, the motivational speaker. I'm going to reach out. I'm going to grab the world by the tail and I'm going to pull it down and put it in my pocket. But then he says, but I think you'll find as you go along that your Mr. Excitement idea is not going to work out as perfectly as you think it's going to. It's going to take more time than you think it's going to take. It's going to cost more money than you think it's going to cost. So not getting carried away with Mr. Excitement and spending a bunch of money on things like studio space or things like we spent like $5,000 going to the New York Comic Con, and we hired booth babes to model our characters, and we did all these interviews and we had a great time. And we sold tons of comic books, but we didn't sell $5,000 worth of comic books or, get $5,000 worth of benefit back from that. So you have to be really careful with, your precious cash flow and what you decide to spend that cash flow on, because it can make or break you.
Amen to that. That's some great advice there, especially the getting mentors and then listening to them. I've made that mistake. You have the mentor and they're saying, don't do, or the opposite, do this and it will double your revenues or double your, conversions. And then you don't do it. And they're like, well, why didn't you do it? And you're like, well, X, Y, Z. And then you could say, okay, I'll listen to you this time. You go do it and you're like, wow, it works. Just because you don't understand it 100% doesn't mean it doesn't work.
That's very true. It's very true. But there's things that, hey, if we buy this software, this CRM software as an example, it's gonna, the software itself is going to be magical and it's going to generate revenue for us. But that software is only as good as the people who are using it, the people who are leveraging it, the people who are taking action with the tool. So the tool is not going to make you money. The way that you use the tool is typically going to make you money. So don't buy software you don't need, and don't buy office space you don't need. If your people are saying, oh, the boss is really cheap, you're probably doing a good job.
Absolutely right. So you have, I was going through your website and checking some things out. You got a couple of big projects that caught my eye. I think one was Dominion. Is that right? And then Samson. You want to tell? I was drawn in so I want to give you the opportunity to tell everyone about it. So if they want to check it out, they can go do that.
Sure. And hopefully we can put some links to that in the show notes.
Oh, we will definitely do that. Absolutely.
That'd be great. And the first one is Dominion Fall of the House of Saul. At the beginning of 2000, I spoke with Dr. Baron Bell, and we were talking about, where do we want to go with Terminus Media from here? This was before the pandemic hit and everything. And we were just tired of being that kind of generic indie comic book company. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to be more authentic to ourselves. So the first project that we chose was Dominion, Fall of the House of Saul. And Dr. Bell, he pitched it to me. He's like, okay, this is weird, Mark, but here's what I got. There's the story of King Saul in 1 Samuel in the Bible. It's like King Saul, the first king of Israel. And I want to do a book about his life and his fall. Spoilers. But I want to do it with anthropomorphic animals. So Saul is going to be a huge lion, and he's the king of Dominion, which all the characters are going to be warm-blooded creatures like cheetahs and wolves and deer and gorillas and rhinoceros, right? Those are the good guys. That's Dominion. Supposed the Israelites. And then the bad guys, the Philistines, they're going to be alligators and cold-blooded creatures, snapping turtles and that sort of thing, and lizards. And so I was like, I'll just stop you right there. And it's all going to be set in like an interplanetary universe, right? And they're gonna fly ships with lasers, and they're gonna have lightning weapons, and they're gonna pilot huge battle mechs. And I was like, I'll just stop you right there, because I'm a kid who grew up rushing home from school to watch Thundercats and Voltron, back in the 80s. So, so I was like, when you said Lions in Space, you had me at Lions in Space. So yeah, he went away and did some concept art and stuff, but the book has just turned out really beautifully. We're on chapter 3 now. We're up to the point where in chapter 3 at the very end, you get your first glimpse of this little kid who you folks might be familiar with, David, piloting this little battle mech called a slingshot. We get our first glimpse of him in chapter 3. So we've got 3 books now of Dominion, Fall of the House of Saul, and I'll tell you, this chapter 3 of Dominion it's almost twice as long as all the other chapters, but I would say it's twice as good as well. And the other chapters were already in the great category. Nice. So it's turned out really well. The team is really gelling, and we're hearing a lot of good feedback. People are like, "Is this is based on a Bible story.
See, I think that's the cool thing about it. As I was cruising through and just looking at the artworks, I'm a visual guy, so the artwork caught me first. I didn't even read anything. I was just kind of scanning through, and you have this cool little, cruise by. You can kind of check out all the different pieces of art. And I'm with you. You had me at Lions in Space, right? That was good, And then you throw in this cool story from a different angle, and then you toss in, like you said, Voltron or, whatever robot base. I was thinking Battlestar Galactica for a moment.
Oh, it's so Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
It's so Star Wars.
It's such a cool way to share an iconic story. Again, whatever faith you go by, it's an iconic story, and all the values that come with that can be shared to the kids who would be like, oh man, look, what a cool, they're not thinking I'm reading the Bible here. They're going on a journey in outer space with these amazing characters. I was hooked right out of the gate. Like I said, you had me at Lions in Space.
See, we share that. And it's funny how, there was Professor Howard Hendricks, who's a professor at Dallas Theological Seminary. He was teaching about how to teach people the Bible, and he's like, if you want to bore them with Shakespeare, bore them with nuclear physics. He's like waving his hands. It's like, but don't bore people with the Word of God, right?
Right.
And so we take that advice to heart, and we've heard from people who, the only thing they'd ever read the Bible was for to maybe win an argument on social media or something. But, people would be like, I'm not familiar with this story. Let me go read this. Right. I think that's great, because if the Bible is at least in, Western culture, it's an important historical document, even if you're not a person of faith. So seeing biblical literacy go up, I think is a positive thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you have Samson, Rise. That was the other one, right?
Yeah. Samson Rise is our latest book. And we worked with Matt and Daryl and our brothers in Australia, and they wanted to do sort of a gritty, almost like a old West almost telling of the story of another Bible character that happened before King Saul in the span of the Judges. And there was this guy Samson, and the way the Bible talks about him was. And we had a debate within our company, right? Is Samson is he the Superman of the Bible, right? Or is he the Incredible Hulk of the Bible, right? Samson smash. But I think we came to the conclusion that he was kind of like the Wolverine of the Bible, because he kills 600 people with the jawbone of a donkey, right? And the reason he used the jawbone of a donkey is because the bad guys, the Philistines, who were still the bad guys back in those days, they had outlawed them making weapons. So he made this improvised weapon, and it's just a gritty telling of the story, and it starts at the end, and with Samson being in prison and thinking, how did I get here? And just looking back over his life and thinking about how did the strongest man that's ever lived, basically, how did he end up falling prey to his weaknesses and being locked up in prison? So, yeah, it's a pretty gritty telling of the story, and I think that's a good thing. It's a book that we want to donate to prisons, and along with the Bible, get those things in there for folks. And I think there's a lot to say about Samson's biggest weakness was women. He just couldn't help himself when it came to a seductive woman. So I think that's something a lot of guys will relate to, and a lot of women could probably relate to that story.
Absolutely. And I think the cool thing about the way you're telling these stories is you don't even have to know the story, right? You don't have to be religious or whatever. And even if you are, maybe you don't know this particular story. Can't imagine how, but but you could still enjoy it. And when it comes to donating this book or the books, to prisons, remind me to hook you up with Zach Babcock. He on a mission to reduce the recidivism rate, and he's actually been building connections in the prison systems to get content to the inmates. So I want to connect you two together so that we can help make that happen.
Please, Zach Babcock. I look forward to connecting with them.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that you two get connected by tomorrow. All right.
Great. Let's do that. Right. Because we've been talking about it, praying about it, because we want to put positive things out into the world. We want to help people, not in a preachy way or a we're better than you way, but in, hey, let's all help one another. And
there it is.
Sometimes I need help, and sometimes somebody else needs help. So
that's right. It comes back to what you were saying earlier about Zig Ziglar. You help enough other people get what they want, you get what you want. It's putting it out there. And if you don't put it out there, it ain't coming back. That's all there is to it.
That's right.
All right. Mark, I definitely appreciate your time. I want to be mindful of it, but if any folks has resonated with them, they want to check out Terminus Media, they want to check out these books or any of the other ones you have out there, or maybe they have a project for their business. They're like, dude, maybe Mark's my guy. Where do we want to send them to?
Sure. Folks can go to our website, terminusmedia.com. It's spelled TERMINUSMEDIA. And we have all of our books for sale there. You can get links to, each of our books has an animation that basically tells you a little bit about it. So you can make a good decision about what you think you would like to see. But we have the two books we talked about, Dominion, Fall of the House of Saul, and Samson, Rise. But we also have this little book, Radio Free America, on our website. And it's great. It's about the United States getting nuked by the bad guys, and they use the resistance uses encrypted messages and hip hop music to coordinate itself.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, that's a great story. And then we have more of a kid centered book, Platypus versus Monkey, and this is actually a book that I wrote, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of cartoony. It's about a monkey that was shot into space by the Soviet space program. Got off course because it got hit by an asteroid. Some benevolent aliens find him and send him back to Earth, but instead of landing in the former Soviet Union, he lands in New York City and thinks it's his job to take over, New York City for the motherland. So there's lots of great and funny stuff there. So check it out on our website.
It sounds like a little twist on the Planet of the Apes origins.
Planet of the Monkey.
I love it. All right. So we'll make sure we're going to get all those links in the show notes so people can just click over and check you out. Any final words from the man, Mark?
Hey, just be authentic, do what you love, and, take care of your family and love your friends, and life's better that way.
There it is. I can't even add to that. And with that, we're out. All right. There you have it, my Dark Horse friends and family. Mark Stancil dropping comic book bombs on us, right? What kind of resonated with you? Yeah. Here, let me tell you a couple of things that kind of clicked with me. Thought number one, associate with like minds. Mark talks about how he was a writer and always had been a writer, but it was when he went to that comic book shop and met some of the folks there, some of whom were also writers, that's when things started to happen for him as well as for them. See, as they started interacting with each other on their writing projects, what happened? Each of them got better with their craft. They got feedback from one another. They got ideas. It's that brainstorming, a session type of mentality you've heard me mention here a few times. You see, you do not go down to the local bar and cry in your beer if you're looking for a new job, or if you're looking to get your new business up off the ground, that new project going. No. That's not where the jobs are. That's not where the businesses are. That's not where the opportunities are. You get yourself out there and you associate yourself with those that are in your industry, working on your craft, doing what you want to do. That, my friend, is where the hidden gems lie. See, here's a cool thing. People pay thousands heck, even tens of thousands of dollars to be in the right room with the right people. The fact that they're willing to do that should tell you that there's something of true value in doing that. Now, I'm not saying you need to pay hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars to do that. You simply need to apply yourself, and you will find those folks that you need and want to associate with everywhere. Thought number 2. Do not limit your options. Mark and his friends were originally writing for screenplays and movies and such, right? I mean, he said so. Then, once again, via that magic comic book store, he found some artists that had like passions. So they began turning those screenplays that they had written into comic books and graphic novels. And if you think about it, have you ever seen a documentary about movies, like say, for instance, the making of Star Wars, and you see them, they've got this wall of blocks up there and little pictures have been drawn in each one. They're literally storyboarding out the movie, which is basically a comic book. So they shifted to storyboarded versions of their screenplays. And this shifted them to making animations to promote those comic books that they created via that storyboarding process. Well, here's the thing. If they had stayed so narrowly focused on just screenplays, would they have been successful? Maybe, perhaps, right? But I think, for me, their ability to adapt and overcome, like they say in so many military venues, they adapted and they overcame via the resources that they had at their disposal. That is what led to their current, well, let's say their newfound version of success. So the question becomes, are you making the best use of your idea? Are you narrowing down your chances by narrowing your focus too much? Take a look around at what missed opportunities there might be right within your reach. And then at the same time, take a look around at resources you have right within your grasp that you might not be leveraging towards your success. And thought number 3, find your niche. Yeah. See, in their industry happens to sell, 100 to 150 million comics each year. How would they stand out in the crowd? Remember, he was talking about, you go to the San Diego Comic-Con, the largest Comic-Con in the world, and there's hundreds, maybe even more, of indie comic book sellers. Hey, come look at me, come look at me. Well, Mark and his team decided that they were going to be that faith and family friendly comic book source. So if you were looking for something that was family friendly and you wanted to have some of those faith-based lessons woven into the storylines, then they were going to be your go-to source for comic books and graphic novels. So that begs the question I need to ask you. Have you taken the time to make your niche clear? Are you still a bit vague about it, right? Are you saying, for example, I serve coaches? Okay, what kind of coaches, right? You know what kind of coaches you're talking about, but does everyone else? Someone may say football coaches, basketball coaches. You're like, no, life coaches. Okay, life coaches is a little narrower. That's good, but I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That is a market of over 20,000 people in the United States alone, okay? So, and I get it. Yeah, it's a $2 billion industry and you want a little scratchier little piece of it. But I think you need to narrow down just a bit more, right? Perhaps you could be the life coach for men over 40 that have been divorced. Or the life coach for men over 40 that still need to learn, work a bit more on their work-life balance skills, right? Okay, now you've really narrowed it down. You see, narrowing it down is gonna lead to your success. And here's the real deal. You don't need all 20,000 of those people, right? That are raising their hand saying, I'm a life coach. You need 20. Yeah, right? 20. That's it. Now, if you're really greedy, let me check that. Let me say that in a more positive way. If you're really hungry, maybe you need 40, 50 tops. So find your niche. And here's one more secret I want to let you in. Lean in. Listen real close. Turn the volume up. You are probably already in your niche. It's probably who you were yesterday, last month, last year. Because you pulled yourself through it. You know how it's done. I'm just saying. All right. I'm going to ask again, what ideas or inspiring tips or thoughts resonated with you from today's episode? Whatever they were, as soon as you can, safely, right? You may be driving right now. You may be running down the road. All right. As soon as you can, write them down. Put them pen to paper. That way, the next time you're going, what was that idea I got when Tracy was talking with Mark about comic books? Yeah, they just gone, like into the ether, like smoke in the wind. Well, you can go back and you can see, here's why I wrote it down. Right there it is. And then, later on, put it into action. Very important, right? Get out there, run your race, get your results, and let me hear about it. That's right. I'm serious. Tracy at darkhorseschooling.com. Share the tips or ideas you came away with, how you put them into action, and what results you gained from them. Heck, probably even bring you on the show so you can share your winning story with my audience. Now, next week, right? Nate Bailey is going to be on the show. Nate has this simple philosophy about life, and it is live what you teach. Man, so simple, right? Nate sees what needs to be done, and he does it. He pushes himself and his team to the max, and then he makes sure he's leading from the front by pushing himself one step beyond that. You're not going to want to miss this episode. Now, I know you want to keep getting all these valuable tips and these awesome stories from these amazing guests I'm lucky enough to bring on this show. So please go on down there, hit that subscribe button. While you're there, yep, that's right, leave us a 5-star rating. A 5-star rating, because I know you think we're that good. Anyway, at least the guests I bring on are that good, right? Write a quick review. Leave us some kind words. Maybe you have a suggestion. Hey, here's someone you need to interview, Tracy. Maybe you have a question. I read every single one of those reviews because I appreciate you that much. And of course, don't keep all this entrepreneurial GOLD all to yourself. Share this podcast with other entrepreneurs and business owners you know will get value from it. And with that, I'm going to leave you as I always do. Think successfully and take action.
Thank you for listening to the Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
And you know this.
Thanks for tuning in.
Check us out at www.darkhorseschooling.com.
All right.
My name is Tracy Brinkman.